Over the years, Jeopardy has certainly had its share of outstanding and memorable contestants. Who could forget Frank Spangenberg, Eddie Timanis, and of course, Ken Jennings? Well, let's get to know our contestants a little bit better, shall we? And hear from them about their incredible experiences on our program. Ken?
What is the triathlon?
No.
Things go so fast, it's the kind of thing that just keeps you up that night in the motel room as you're thinking, holy cow, what just happened today?
You're able to pull these things out of thin air and think, how did I know that? You don't know how you know it, but you just do.
What is the North Sea?
You're right.
Less than a minute.
If you're a trivia buff, you know, it's just fun to watch at home, but I mean, of course, you want to get as many right as you can, too.
The most important thing that would help make a person a good Jeopardy contestant is to slip Johnny and me a few dollars.
A good Jeopardy contestant is confident, is calm, smart, that's a given, is a student of the show.
I would say it's very important for anyone who wants to be a good Jeopardy player, and by that I mean a successful Jeopardy player, to have read a great deal and to be able to handle stress that comes with competition.
Which one? The second.
No.
There's something about watching the best players play a game that I think is the best game show on television, the best way possible. You're watching people that are just top of the line at this game, and it's a thrill for us.
So the ones who are good contestants are well prepared, and they're poised, and they know how to do their best under pressure.
Our returning champion, a police officer from Flushing, New York, Frank Spangenberg, whose 4-day cash winnings total $71,997.
Frank Spangenberg was a great champion. He was the first champion to win over $100,000, and he was limited at the time to only $75,000, so whatever was earned above that amount went to his favorite charity. He has appeared in a number of our tournaments. People in New York recognize him, and wherever he travels, of course, people recognize him all the time, even though his first appearance on our show was about 15 years ago.
My first game was back in 1990 under the old rules where you had the 5-day limit plus the $1,000 was the top money amount, and I set a record back then of $102,597 in 5 days. And then I lasted well again when I came back for the 10th anniversary tournament in 1993, and I won that one.
In the 5.5 years we have done Jeopardy, Frank has earned, after just 4 regular games, more money than all other contestants with the exception of 2. Chuck Forrest 3 years ago, and Bob Blake, a 5-time champion from earlier this year.
Frank initially competed on the show long before I joined it. So Frank was among that group of contestants that were, I think, heroes, legends, icons, probably more importantly, role models.
Frank has his demeanor, and I remember when he made the $102,000, $103,000 years ago, the ability to play this game and the way he would take those daily doubles, and he would be just bold, brazen about it and say, I'm going for it, I'm going for it, I'm going for it. And I love that about Frank, and that's what stuck out about Frank in my mind.
$7,000, please.
Gutsy player, Frank. Easy come, easy go, I know. All right.
Don't forget, our money was half of what it is now. So when Frank Spangenberg made $28,000 in a day, that'd be 56 now. You've got to be a gambler to really rack up cash here, because if you're wrong, you're gone. You blow a daily double with a lot of cash down late in the game, and you go from top dog to what happened.
It was a little bit tense. They said bring 3 changes of clothes, and I was real cocky. I brought 4 neckties. Probably more because I'm indecisive rather than because I expected to use them all. But I played the first game, and it was the second one taped that day, so I won it. You know, they race you off stage, bring it back on. So it was 4 back-to-back, and I used all 4 ties. And I was a little bit stunned, and I gave my father a call when it was over, and I said, you know, I just won $70,000 on Jeopardy. I'm going back tomorrow. And he said, no, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Frank Spangenberg, you've won a lot of money. Any thoughts ever of going back into the teaching profession? You did it before you became a police officer. What are you going to do with this money, by the way?
I have a few things in mind, maybe a down payment on a house, and I'd also like to go back to school.
This is a guy whose thirst for knowledge is never quenched. He keeps wanting to learn. He keeps wanting to know more. He really has his pulse on every form of education. He reads like crazy. It's really fascinating. The guy never wants to stop learning and knowing and growing, and he can't wait to come back and play this thing, I'll tell you that much, every time he gets a call.
One of the important criterion under which we produce Jeopardy is that if you can pass the test, you can be a player on our show. And that's why in recent years you have seen a number of physically challenged individuals as contestants. That is the case today with Eddie Timanis.
Eddie Timanis first tried out for Jeopardy 2 years before I joined the show. And at that time, the decision was made that we cannot accommodate a blind contestant on Jeopardy. After all, you have to be able to see the lights around the board that let you know that your signaling button has been enabled, and we just don't think a blind contestant can compete. And I believed otherwise.
The first time I tried out, you know, we weren't quite sure how everything was going to work as far as me being able to take the test, but they said, no problem, we'll get it worked out. So they had somebody, you know, just write down my test answers, because someone on the staff, that was the only thing they had to do different for me, but otherwise the audition process was pretty much the same for everybody.
He had passed the test, and so we brought him in to play. We asked him what accommodations would he need to play, and the only thing he asked for was at the top of each round, he wanted the categories in Braille. We also had to change the electronics in the podium for Final Jeopardy so that instead of writing his response, he could type it on a keyboard. Well, that was it.
I must admit that I have been more nervous than our champion, Eddie Timanis. We give him a card, as you all know, that contains all of the categories for each round of play. The card has those categories in Braille, but Eddie has to use his memory only to remember which clues in each category have been used up.
We went through that first show, and Eddie won easily. We said, oh, thank goodness, you know, he won. He doesn't have to feel embarrassed. So we're so relieved. We don't care what happens now. He made the first show. He did a great showing. In fact, he won. That's great.
Eddie Timanis was the first totally blind contestant we had on the program, and he was the most successful of all of the physically challenged contestants who have appeared on our program. He won 5 matches, won 2 automobiles, came back to compete in our Masters tournament in New York City, and has done very, very well. He has a good sense of humor, and he enjoys himself in public, and we enjoyed him.
I've always just thought of myself as, you know, I'm just a normal, you know, regular, everyday guy working for a living. I'm unique in some respects, but everybody is. So, you know, I didn't think anybody would make such a big deal about, you know, the fact that I had done what I did. But then the reactions started coming in, the phone calls, you know, from the Today Show and Good Morning America, and I was like, geez.
In the entire history of Jeopardy, there have been 3 occasions when I've had a tear in my eye. One with a young girl in the children's competition, once when Ken Jennings lost, and the 3rd time was when Eddie Timanis won his 5th match. I was just so filled with pride for him in his accomplishment, which was terrific. I just figured out, before you make your wager, I just figured out a nickname for you, Ken the Merciless.
At the beginning of the 2003 season, we, after a couple of years of considering this, because it certainly wasn't a decision made easily or quickly, we decided to let contestants stay on the show as long as they continued winning. And so that opened the door. And it wasn't until a year later, almost, that Ken Jennings came walking through that door and stuck around.
I had been watching Jeopardy ever since I was a little kid. Jeopardy came back on the air in like 1984 when I was only 10 years old. So even as a 10-year-old, I'd come home from school every day and just watch it Hypnotize because I was just so into the show, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to be one of these, smart guys up there someday?
When I first saw Ken Jennings, young guy, 29, 30 years old, blonde, nothing special about him, nice-looking kid, very quiet. And all of a sudden, Ken Jennings starts winning shows. And by the time this guy gets to $200,000, there's something really special about this guy.
Jeopardy tapes 5 shows in a day, usually in 2-day chunks. So what it turned into was me flying down to California every couple weeks, taping 10 shows, all the time wondering, is this it? Is this the last game? And then flying back home to Salt Lake City and having to concoct some kind of excuse for why I was gone from work, because they tell you they want you to keep the outcomes of your games secret.
I used to joke about him being part of the cast on a number of occasions because after about 30 or 40 shows, I couldn't come up with any original type questions to ask him in the interview portion. I figured, gosh, I've asked him everything that anybody would want to know. So instead of it being a question and answer situation, it was almost 2 guys in conversation.
I have a great job and love the people I work with. I may work fewer hours from now on, but...
Have you thought of buying the company?
I was sort of struggling after 3 shows to come up with a little chit-chat with Alex, much less 53 or 63 shows. And it did start to get a little surreal. Like, I've watched some of those shows, and it's just like, well, what are Ken and Alex going to pretend to talk about today? Oh, how are you doing? What's new with you,
The great thing about Ken was that he had a marvelous sense of humor, and he could roll with the punches, and he could throw things back at me, poke fun at himself, at the game, at the situation, and he was humble. So you weren't dealing with somebody who was obnoxious. You were dealing with a very pleasant young man that you enjoyed spending time with. There was no downside to it as far as I was concerned. And when he finally lost, I was sad. Nancy, you wrote down your response rather quickly, I thought. I hope it's correct. Let's take a look.
I hope so, too.
What is H&R Block? You're right. Your wager, 4,401, taking you up to 14,401. You have a $1 lead over Ken Jennings right now. And his final response was FedEx. His wager was 5601.
We rehearsed what's going to happen when he loses. Not so much for Kenny losing, but the reaction on that person that wins. Because I think every time you went out there and he was champion, you didn't think you were going to win.
In the end, when Ken lost, it was so apparent that here was a guy who was humble as a winner and gracious as a loser. And I thought that just said a lot about him as a person.
There was a sense of relief that, finally I can know how the story ends and go home and be with my family. But I found myself missing Jeopardy, sort of like after summer camp when you're a kid, you sort of miss all your friends from summer camp. I sort of missed the fact that I couldn't come here and hang out anymore.
Before people even get an audition, we have them register online. And there are thousands and thousands of people in almost every city that we go to that don't get an audition, and it's a shame. We don't have the time to see everybody. We see between, I'd say, 25,000 and maybe 40,000, depending on how many events we do, like a brain bus event or regular interviews. And then out of that, like I say, it's normally between 10 and 15% of the people that pass the test. And out of those people, we use about 400 on the show each season.
Representing Jeopardy at a brain bus. It's a wonderful way to bring Jeopardy to our viewers' backyards.
For a Jeopardy fan, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Not only do they have a chance to test and see if they have what it takes to make it on our show, but they also get to play the game.
When we come out and do a brain bus, we do a number of activities. There's singing games, there's timeline games, any number of things that get integrated into playing a mock version of the show.
We actually kind of play Alex Trebek. He can't be everywhere, so we step into his shoes for our traveling version of the game. And it's really a lot of fun. The contestants get to use the real buzzers from the show. They get to pick out their categories and their dollar amounts, and of course, answer in the form of a question. It really is a great Jeopardy experience. experience, and we hope that when people leave our event, they say, hey, you know, for a few minutes, I got to see what it was like to be a Jeopardy contestant.
Those people that are trying out for the show, please follow me this way. Good luck, everyone. Right now, we're going to be auditioning approximately, looks like around 60 people trying out for Jeopardy right at the moment. And what we're going to do is we're going to give them the test on the actual stage where we do Jeopardy.
If they come in to take a 50-question written test, which I think is very difficult, obviously most of them do too, because of a room of 90 people, probably 10% pass the test usually. Did all your categories come up? Yeah, I hardly ever hear yes, so don't be surprised. Glenn and I are going to go ahead and collect your answer sheets. So if you'd pass them to the center aisle, we'd be glad to pick those up so we can go grade them. So once they pass the test, 50 questions, 50 different categories. Once they pass the difficult test, then they stay and play what we call a mock version of Jeopardy, a game, just to see how they are on their feet.
If you do well at your contestant audition, you'll be here on the Jeopardy set. The contestant tryout process can be a little intimidating, so here are some tips to help you do your best. And remember, the contestant coordinators are there to help you shine.
Be relaxed. If you make it through the 50-question test, you should be proud of yourself. You watch the show, you know how it works. If you go in with some confidence, you're sure to do better than if you're quaking in your boots. Make the buzzer your ally. Wait until the lights come on at the end of the clue before ringing in. Now, if you ring in too early, you'll only lock yourself out on the show and never get a chance to show exactly how much you know.
And remember, keep pressing the signaling button. If you're ringing in too early, you could get in on your second or third hit. This could be your chance, so don't let the buzzer beat you.
Once you're called upon, remember to respond in the form of a question. It's the rule. So if you keep saying Napoleon, Dickens, or Guatemala without the who is or the what is, you'll be ruled incorrect. So get into the questioning habit.
And of course, it's also kind of important that when you ring in, most of your responses are the correct ones.
Let's go back to Nick.
What is here's Johnny?
Good read, Nick.
I'll take Jack Nicholson for 4.
Be yourself. Play with enthusiasm. It may pay off to the tune of a major winning streak on the show.
Most of all, have some fun. It is, after all, a game show. Our contestant coordinators are looking for people our viewers will enjoy watching on the show. So show them exactly how great a contestant you're going to be.
All of us at Jeopardy want to thank you. We hope you had fun. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Give
Good
yourself
job,
a round
you
of
guys.
applause, everybody. Well done.
There's no gimmicks, there's no distractions, it's just questions and answers. And it's questions and answers about important stuff. Jeopardy has not dumbed down at the same rate that a lot of other things in our culture have. Jeopardy still asks about, you know, things that you might see as relics, you know, opera and art and Shakespeare. And but to me, this stuff's sort of important. It would be nice if we all knew this stuff a little bit more. And I'm sort of glad Jeopardy still values it.
It's funny how over the years you'll see people on other game shows, they'll buzz in and say, what is something? You know, that's how ingrained in the culture the show has become.
Other game shows that are in any sort of question format have just dumbed themselves down so much. It really isn't about knowing anything. It's just about luck. And yeah, luck is interesting for one person or for two people, but when every single show is just, you know, roll the dice or spin the wheel or just hope that you get it right, this is about some sort of talent that you actually have.
You can come away from an episode of Jeopardy and say, oh, you know what? I learned something. You know, I learned, or, oh, you know, I do remember that. Or, wow, those 3 smart people didn't get Final Jeopardy, and I did.
Jeopardy is special on many levels. Americans love competition. They love to watch competitions. It's the kind of show where you can be watching at home, and in the 61 clues that come up in the half hour, you might be able to respond correctly on 4 or 5 of them, but that's going to make you feel good. You're not going to remember all the ones you missed. You're going to remember the ones you got.